I was a male celebrity plagued by scandals. The internet said I slept my way to the top, that I was promiscuous. My family said I was jealous of their adopted son, that I went out of my way to hurt him. My friends said I was two-faced and not worth knowing. Even my fiance thought I wasn't as generous, kind, or pure as my younger brother. Fine. I'll just leave your world behind. I refused to be defined or controlled by anyone. The faint smell of antiseptic filled the hospital room. I'd been awake for a while, just staring at my phone. After all this time, not a single person had called to check on me. Finally, a call came through from my agent. The moment I picked up, he laid into me. "Vincent, are you insane? You fell off a horse on purpose just for the publicity, and now Director Simon is replacing you. What am I supposed to do?" I paused. "You think I fell on purpose?" The horse had suddenly bolted. "What else could it be? Aren't you just pissed that Iris stole the lead role from you?" His voice was still frantic. "Take a look at yourself. You both have the same last name, but he's the golden boy of the Brooke family. Who the hell are you?" I said nothing, listening as my agent continued. "You've pissed off the Brooke family, and the company isn't going to protect you. You're on your own. They were planning to blacklist me. The Brooke family. How ironic." I looked down, and after a long moment I said, "Fine, let's just terminate the contract." My agent sneered. "Terminate it? Can you even afford the penalty fee? That's none of your business." Just saying those words, "terminate the contract," gave me a surge of confidence. I hung up on him. After that, I just stared at my phone in a daze. My fall from the horse had indeed started trending, but it was all just a tidal wave of negative comments about me. I'm sure the production team had a hand in it, not wanting to take any responsibility. In any case, no one believed it was an accident. Iris's fans had completely flooded my social media. Reading their comments now, I felt nothing. Over and over, they asked, "Why hasn't Vincent quit the industry yet?" My parents finally called. Before I answered, I held onto one last shred of hope. Then I heard my mom's first words. "Vincent, did you fall off that horse on purpose today?" Even as that last bit of hope faded, a chill ran through me. "Mom, aren't you going to ask if I'm badly hurt?" I asked. Before she could answer, a man's voice cut in from the side. "If you did it on purpose, how serious could it be? Did you do it to pressure the production team into giving you the lead role back?" I had to laugh. So my dad did know the role should have been given back to me. I didn't say anything, but he was ready to lecture me righteously. "What role could you possibly want that the family can't get for you? Why do you have to fight with Iris over everything? Don't you know how important this role is to him? When you hit rock-bottom disappointment, you don't even have the energy to argue anymore." They had no idea this role was my last chance to turn things around. "Dad, Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "please take care of yourselves." I hung up after that. They probably didn't realize I was saying goodbye. They didn't call back. I remembered the day I returned to the Brooke family home at 12. Iris was dressed like a little prince, while I was tan and scruffy, stepping into a mansion for the first time with eyes full of insecurity. Back when Iris used to sweetly call me Big Brother, I would instinctively protect him. If he got into trouble, I didn't mind taking the blame. But later, I realized my parents had already branded me a compulsive liar, a jealous and even morally corrupt person. And my friends, they all became Iris's friends, too. Even Alex, my fiance, became one of Iris's friends. The truth is, I wasn't some long-lost son who was switched at birth. I was always the Brooke family's son. It's just that shortly after I was born, a friend introduced my dad to a fortune teller who, with convincing authority, read my birth chart and declared I was a curse on the family. The Brooke family business was having some trouble at the time, and my dad bought it completely. Following the fortune teller's advice, they sent me to the countryside and adopted a child from an orphanage whose birth chart was said to bring prosperity. That was Iris. Strangely enough, from the moment I was sent away and Iris was adopted, the family business started to thrive. My mom probably couldn't bear to part with the child she carried for 10 months at first. I have memories of seeing a woman watching me from a distance at the edge of the village several times. But Iris was just a baby when they brought him home. He was raised by my parents. The fortune teller said he was their lucky charm, the reason for their success, so my mom poured more and more of her affection into him. I used to think that was just how things were. But when Iris would fan the flames with that innocent look on his face whenever my parents were angry with me, I couldn't be his brother anymore. I didn't like him. Later, I got into the entertainment industry. I wanted to be a singer, but the company said I had the looks for acting and that I could always sing later. I played a few roles and got a little buzz. Not long after, Iris joined the industry too. He played up his identity as the young master of the Brooke family. My parents told me his fate was tied to the family's, so I couldn't reveal my own identity or the fact that Iris wasn't their biological son. I didn't care. But soon after, a lot of scandals about me started to surface, that I had a sugar daddy, that I was a terrible actor, that I was disrespectful, and so on. The company said bad press was still press and refused to issue any clarifications. When there are enough rumors, a mix of truth and lies, people will only believe what they want to see. I couldn't tell if I was still jealous or bitter, but I was definitely tired, drained from the endless emotional turmoil. I saw a therapist many times, trying to find a reason for my existence. If you didn't love me, why did you have me? If I wasn't important, why did you bring me back? My therapist repeatedly stressed that I needed a change of environment. Before I left, I had a few things to take care of and one more person I wanted to see. My injuries weren't too serious, but I definitely couldn't continue filming. It was normal for the production to replace me, but since I'd been in the hospital, not a single person had come to visit. Alex contacted me 2 days later, by phone. He probably couldn't even stand the sight of me anymore. Alex's cold voice came through the line. "Vincent, are you feeling any better?" I paused, bracing myself before I spoke. "Alex, can we meet up sometime soon?" "Sorry, Vincent. I'm pretty busy lately. Maybe." Before he could finish, I heard Iris's voice on the other end. "Alex, what are you doing here visiting the set?" For some reason, I suddenly wanted to laugh. No time to meet with me, but plenty of time to visit Iris on set. I said, "Alex, let's just end our engagement. If the Brooke and Herbert families must have an alliance, Iris is an option too." "Vincent, what are you talking about?" he said, his tone annoyed. "We can talk about this after I'm done with work." I didn't want to hear any more and hung up. After that, I hired a caregiver to help me for a few days. My leg was well enough to walk on, as long as I avoided any strenuous activity. I went to the company to terminate my contract, using most of my savings from over the years to pay the penalty fee. Seeing I had no value left, the company let me go without a fight. When I walked out, I felt like I had nothing left to my name. During a previous fight with my family, they had frozen all my cards to force me to give in. It was actually for the best. I tossed the SIM card I'd used for over a decade and deleted all the public social media accounts registered under the name Vincent Brooke. I left the city all alone. I had no idea that I was trending that day, that they were all wondering where Vincent Brooke had gone. After years of cursing my name, now that I had deleted my accounts, they had nowhere to direct their hate. It would be several months before I went online again. I went to a place where no one knew me. It was a remote village, not very developed economically. The internet here wasn't very fast either. I'd actually been preparing for the move for some time. I bought a house here, had it renovated, purchased everything I would need, and hired people to move it all in. The property prices here were very low. Moving in went smoothly. I finally had a quiet life. No noise, no chaos. While the villagers were curious about an outsider like me, they generally kept to themselves, and I wasn't one to go out much anyway. The village was mostly home to the elderly and children left behind by parents working in the cities. Most of them didn't follow entertainment news. My house was in a secluded part of the village, so not many people passed by. I could focus on my yard and write music. After returning to the Brooke family, I had studied music for a while. With the Brooke family's wealth, they were willing to spend money on their children's artistic education. Unfortunately, my piano was accidentally broken by Iris a few years ago, and I never found another one I liked. The house I lived in now had a piano with a red rose inlay, one I had custom ordered from Italy. It had only been finished at the beginning of this year. Here I could write, compose, and sing without restraint. I would occasionally go to the local market with the village aunties and then work on my little yard. I planted a lot of flowers and also set aside a patch of land for vegetables. Some of the aunties I'd gotten to know didn't understand. They'd tell me in their local dialect that planting useless things like flowers wasn't as good as planting more vegetables. I would just smile and say nothing. I had a set of filming equipment and fully documented how my little yard was transformed. With my mind at peace, I felt a sense of fulfillment and even stopped taking my medication. I kept a paper calendar in the house, tearing off a page each day. My new phone went largely unused for a long time. After about 5 months like this, I registered a new account online. The buzz around Vincent Brooke online had faded. People would occasionally mention me, but it was harmless. Sometimes I'd get recommended topics about it, like people wondering why Vincent Brooke quit the industry, or if he was really forced out for offending someone. I didn't give myself a special username, just a very generic one.
Vredzi.
My first post was a song I performed, one I had written a long time ago and only recently composed the music for. After recording it, I taught myself how to edit the video, integrated the audio and video, and finally uploaded the finished piece to my new account. I didn't check it again after posting. The account was just for documenting my work. I'd never sung in public before, and your singing voice can be quite different from your speaking voice, so I wasn't worried about my identity being exposed. Later, looking at my little yard, I decided to register another account to share its progress. The music post didn't get much traction at first. I'd occasionally see a few hundred views. It took me several days to put a finished piece together. I'm really not good at editing, so my videos were very basic as long as the sound and music were fine. I never expected my work to blow up. When I posted my third video, one day I was flooded with notifications. The likes, comments, and shares all shot up to 99. In the comments, they praised my voice and the song. The shares and DMs were all a new experience for me. I scrolled through and saw some DMs were from entertainment companies, asking if I was signed with a platform, if I was interested in becoming a contracted content creator, and if the songs were my original work and if they could license or buy the rights. I looked at them for a while, then put my phone down. I couldn't be bothered to clear all the red notification dots. I understood how online traffic worked. If you ignore it, it will eventually die down. But I forgot that sometimes traffic doesn't play by the rules. Maybe all my bad luck from before was being paid back to me now. But clearly I didn't need it anymore. With my material needs at an all-time low, my current savings were actually enough to support me for a very, very long time. Some people in my DMs even asked if my account was for sale. By this point, I had posted my 5th piece and had over 10,000 followers. It wasn't a lot, not even as many as the haters I used to have. But sometimes I wondered if the people saying they liked me now were the same ones who used to tear me down. My other account had average traffic. I'd occasionally post videos of me tinkering with my flowers and plants. I paid more attention to this account. People would sometimes ask what kind of flowers I was growing, where I bought my tools, or ask me to just drop a link. I'd reply when I saw the comments. Because I wanted to make a before and after video of the yard's transformation, I was filming content every day and learning how to edit. When I was busy, I didn't even have time to think about other things. I knew the Brooke family must have been looking for me after I disappeared without a word for nearly half a year. But in their eyes, I wasn't that important. They probably gave up after a while. If Iris wanted everything the Brooke family had to offer, then he could just be their perfect son. I don't know where my old phone ended up. I think I accidentally dropped it while cleaning, and after it broke, I threw it away. I thought life could go on like this for a long time, until one day I saw a familiar account in my DMs. By now, I had been living as a normal person for almost 8 months and had nearly 10 music pieces posted. I had hundreds of thousands of followers on the platform. I don't know what they were thinking. My songs were being shared by many people, and their popularity was growing. Because my songs couldn't be found on any other platform and I was releasing them so quickly, some people suspected I had a studio behind me. They didn't know that when my mind was calm and happy, my creativity soared. Sometimes an idea would strike while I was lying in bed, and I'd get up to write down some lyrics. In my DMs, I saw an official account. It was from the production team of the show I was on before I quit, the same one where Iris was now the lead actor. They wanted to buy the rights to one of my songs to use as the theme song for the TV series. Not for sale. Message read, no reply. A day later, the account messaged me again, even stating a price. It wasn't particularly high or low, they probably left room for me to negotiate. I still didn't want to reply. Over the next 2 days, the account persisted, sending messages with higher offers each time, but I didn't budge. At the same time, I saw a DM from someone else. I couldn't believe it, so I clicked on their profile to check. It was really him. It was a popular singer I'd crossed paths with at work before. Our relationship was average at best. He seemed to have a bit of a prejudice against me. He was always cold to me, both openly and subtly. But the guy was talented, so maybe he was just arrogant with everyone. He'd meant to ask if all my songs were original, wanting to pay for the rights to sing one of them, and also asking me to write a song for him. I didn't reply to him either. The reason was simple. He didn't like me and I didn't like him. Seeing I'd read his messages and not replied, he, like the production team, sent more messages, a dozen of them. His tone was surprisingly humble, nothing like the person I remembered. But I couldn't even be bothered to click on them. I even posted a new song. After spending a long time in the village, I occasionally went for walks. The village was mostly filled with the elderly and children. Most of the able-bodied adults had gone to work in the cities. Sometimes I'd help a family out by carrying something heavy. Today, as I passed by a house, I heard crying from inside. People in the village didn't have the habit of closing their doors. I looked in and saw Mrs. Chen crying. She was raising her 2 children alone while her husband worked elsewhere. A neighbor was with her. I went up and asked what was wrong. The neighbor looked at me with pity. Her daughter got sick at school a few days ago and was sent to the hospital. She was diagnosed with kidney failure. The surgery will cost at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where would they get that kind of money? The little girl is a good student. It's such a shame. Even if they had the money, finding a kidney donor wasn't guaranteed. But without money, nothing was possible. Both she and her husband got tested, but neither was a match. Their son was only 10, too young to be a donor by principle. Some extended family members were willing to get tested, but so far none were a match. Without a transplant, the little girl's life could be ruined. Mrs. Chun was sobbing her heart out, and her son was crying beside her. But no one in the village, even if they were willing, could scrape together that much money. It was too poor here. My house was one of the few in the village with air conditioning. In their eyes, I was probably considered a rich man now. I stood at the doorway for a while, thinking about the money I had left. Hundreds of thousands. I never thought I'd be in a position where I had to worry about money again. Back home, I sat in my chair and thought for a long time. Finally, I took out my phone and replied to Ken's message on the platform. Hello, we can discuss the collaboration. That kid wanted me to write him a song, right? I'll just fleece him for all he's worth. I don't know if he was staring at his phone 24/7, but he replied within seconds of me sending the message. Mr. Anonymous. Hello? Thank you for your reply. This is my studio's contact info. Could you please add us? I added his studio's contact, and they accepted almost immediately. Once the connection was made, Ken's studio quickly created a group chat with what seemed to be staff members and Ken himself. We started discussing the collaboration. I knew the going rate for songwriting, so I quoted them a price that was on par with what top-tier pop stars pay. It was a bit high, but I needed the money urgently, so of course I was going to milk this for all it was worth. Ken must have really liked my work, because he didn't try to negotiate. Of course, I couldn't reveal my identity, so I turned down all of the studio's requests for in-person meetings. The bank card I used for the payment was Mrs. Chen's. The village officials were willing to cooperate and say it was a donation from a kind stranger. Ken's studio was probably suspicious of my identity. After all, my refusal to disclose anything made me look like a scammer. They sent the initial deposit. I, in turn, worked quickly to write a song according to their requirements. I sent the finished piece over in just a few days. They probably didn't expect it to be so fast and were worried I had plagiarized the lyrics and music. But Ken loved it. He really liked my stuff. Later, He even secretly added me on a private account and started calling me teacher this and teacher that. I had no idea what he was trying to do. Getting a song was simple, just pay up. Sucking up to me was useless. Although I didn't have many expenses myself, Mrs. Chen's situation was a wake-up call. What if one day my equipment broke? Or I got sick? That would all cost money. And even if I didn't need the money, someone else always would. I never wanted to be in a position where I saw someone in need and couldn't help because I was broke. See, even in the middle of nowhere, you still need money. Ken's studio was loaded, they paid up without any fuss. It had been a long time since I'd run into such a big spending sucker. When Ken released his new song, he probably knew I only had an account on one social platform, so he made sure to post it there and tag me, inviting me to listen and comment. I clicked on it and saw big, bold letters on the cover. Lyrics, anonymous. Music, anonymous. Vocals, Ken. It was as if he was afraid people wouldn't know he was the first one to make this happen. Netizens had a strange focus. Half of them were praising how good the song was, while the other half were congratulating Ken for being the first lucky person to win Mr. Anonymous' favor. He seemed pretty pleased with himself. He even made a special post about it. I just wonder if he'll still be smiling when he finds out who I am one day. In fact, a lot of people had DM'd me. After Ken, I started working with other clients. It felt great doing business over the internet. Most clients were polite. The ones who weren't, I could just turn down flat. I didn't have to put up with anyone's attitude. Of course, there were negative comments. The internet is never short on trolls. Some of the people I had ignored before started stirring up drama online, and a flood of hateful comments poured into my comment section and DMs. But what was different this time was that I seemed to have a huge number of fans who would fight for me. Ken even directly replied to my haters from his main account. He was acting like my fan. Such a strange guy. I still didn't respond to any of their likes or dislikes. A calm emotional state suited me better. Iris's career was going pretty well. I thought Alex would get engaged to him after I left, but there was never any official news online. I don't know if it didn't happen or if they just kept it private, but they were definitely playing up the ship for publicity. Mrs. Chen's daughter's surgery was a success. She's taking a break from school to recover. She got really lucky and found a kidney donor. The remaining money in the account is enough for the little girl to recover comfortably. The road out of the village was really terrible, so I talked to the village chief and donated some money to pave it. My little yard was finally starting to look like something. The flowers I planted before were blooming, and white and pink climbing roses covered the fence. The village kids seemed to have taken a liking to my yard. They often ran over and stared at it with longing eyes. They weren't very noisy, so I let them come in and play. Their parents had probably warned them not to touch my things, because the road was being repaired. Although my selfish reason was for my own convenience, it was a big deal for the village. The villagers were all very nice to me now. The kids were a bit reserved when they first came over, but they slowly opened up. The weather has been nice lately, so I had someone help me move my piano outside. I set up a canopy and sat in the yard playing. When the sound of the piano filled the air, everything around me seemed to fall silent. I was lost in my own world, my fingers pressing the keys, the music flowing gently, oblivious to any other sound. I was playing a beginner's piece, Dream Wedding, which I'd been fond of for a while. After I finished, I heard a sound behind me. To make it easier for the village kids to come and play, I hadn't been locking my gate lately, so I turned around. There, in my yard, was an unexpected guest. He was tall, with a stunningly handsome face that looked almost mixed race, and he was dressed in a suit. He was clearly not from around here. This was the first time I met Julian. Looking back, Julian said that when he first saw me, I was sitting at the piano, surrounded by flowers, like a prince from a fairy tale. I joked that he was the one who looked more like a prince. Right now, under my stunned gaze, this stranger who had wandered in began to apologize. Sorry, I heard the piano music and was drawn in. It's beautiful. His voice was deep and low, giving off a sense of worldly gentleness. I remembered the village chief recently mentioning that some investors would be coming to inspect the village's tea fields. This man must be one of them. I said, it's fine. He had clearly noticed the small audience nearby and said something that took me by surprise. "Can I stay and listen too?" Maybe it was because I hadn't seen anyone from the outside world in so long, or maybe it was because he was just so polite, but I agreed. The sound of the piano filled my little yard for a long time that day. Later, I played a new piece I had composed. He specifically came over to ask what it was called, saying he had never heard it before but that it was very beautiful. I paused for a moment before replying, "It doesn't have a name yet." He seemed to hesitate for a second, then chuckled lightly and began to praise my music. He introduced himself, and just as I thought, he was one of the investors. According to social etiquette, I should introduce myself as well. "You can call me Vincent." That's what everyone in the village called me. The older ones called me Vincent, and the younger ones called me Big Brother Vincent. I thought it would be a casual encounter, that we would go back to being strangers. He looked wealthy and important. He wouldn't be staying in a place like this for long. But the next morning, I saw him at my gate. It was still early. I saw him holding breakfast and he said to me, "Vincent, are you playing the piano today?" I was taken aback for a moment and nodded instinctively. He was a good listener, the only person in this village who understood a bit about music theory. We had a lot in common to talk about. The village's tea fields were leased out, which brought in some income. The village was happy, and with the road repairs, transportation would become more convenient, and the economy would improve. For some reason, Julian lingered. He didn't stay in the village but at a hotel in the county town, where the accommodations were just average. I didn't know what other business he had, but he showed up at my place almost every day. After coming a few times, Julian had naturally heard me sing. He seemed to really like my songs. Several times, I was tempted to just share my anonymous profile with him so he could listen on his own time. I hadn't had this kind of contact with someone in a long time and felt a bit resistant. But he was so tactful in his words and actions that after a slight hesitation on my part, he smoothly and unilaterally became my friend. For almost a year, my life had been nothing but music and my little yard. Julian's appearance was abrupt, yet it came with a gentle, silent persistence. I didn't know if Julian knew who I was. Many people online were trying to uncover anonymous identity. If he really wanted to dig, he could find out even more about Vincent Brooks' past. In May, a torrential downpour came on fiercely. The rain was ridiculously heavy, and Julian was trapped at my place. We stood by the door watching the rain. The rain was so dense it looked like a waterfall, mercilessly pounding his car outside. The weather forecast on my phone showed a severe rainstorm warning. After a while, I sighed. "Why don't you just stay here tonight?" Julian turned to look at me. "Is that okay? Will it be too much trouble for you?" I thought I detected a hint of anticipation in his voice. He had probably been interested in my house for a long time. A moment later, I was leading him upstairs to pick a room. He looked around and finally chose the guest room next to mine. We made dinner together. He didn't look like someone who could cook, but surprisingly, he was quite skilled in the kitchen. It made my usual slapdash meals seem all too obvious. The heavy rain wasn't good for me or my yard. Having been off my medication for so long, there were moments when my emotions would relapse. The blooming flowers outside were beaten to the ground. I sat on the bay window, staring out at the rain, my eyes empty. The sounds around me seemed to be blocked out by something. I didn't know what state I was in, but in that moment, I had the illusion of being adrift from the world. Suddenly, the sounds around me became clear again. I turned and saw that Julian had entered my bedroom at some point. The light from outside flooded into my dark room. He apologized politely, "Sorry. I knocked for a long time and didn't hear a response, so I took the liberty of coming in." I didn't speak, but my gaze followed him. Julian was holding a cup of hot water. He placed it on my desk and then slowly walked towards me. I really had no desire to speak and didn't want to deal with anyone at that moment. He should just leave and close the door behind him. But Julian did something unexpected. He placed his hand on my head, moved it, and gently ruffled my hair. I didn't know what he was doing. The next moment, he guided my head to lean against him. My forehead rested against his waist. I could feel his fingertips slowly landing on my face, the gentle friction bringing a noticeable warmth. He was tall, half a head taller than me, and probably worked out regularly as he had a great physique. In that moment, as if by some instinct, I looked up at him. He was also looking down, his gaze fixed on my face. The bedroom was dim, but our eyes met. Some people's eyes are just naturally full of affection. After a long pause, my voice finally seemed to return. I asked, "Julian, are you into men?" He chuckled softly. "No, I'm into you." I thought about my previous engagement to Alex, and why their family would accept him being with a man. It was simple. Alex was an illegitimate son, and he had an older half-brother who was already married with children. He was brought back to the family specifically for a marriage alliance. The Herbert family didn't care if he liked men or women. I remembered that Julian was an only son. "We've only known each other for less than a month," I reminded him. He said, "Sometimes love doesn't need so many conditions." I'm an adult who is very clear about my own feelings, and I know what I'm saying. I didn't respond to him, but I did remind him that I had issues. He didn't leave. After the storm, it seemed he had found an even better reason to stay. To be able to spend the night, he often kept a change of clothes and toiletries in his car. I didn't get him. Doesn't he have a job? But Julian was an exceptional person. He not only knew a bit about music, but he was also much better at filming and editing than I was. He naturally stayed by my side, not asking for any kind of title or status. After the storm, many of the flowers in the yard became fertilizer. Julian didn't look out of place at all while tending to the yard. He didn't wear a suit every day in casual clothes. He looked a bit younger, like a recent college grad. Because of Julian, many people noticed a change in the style of my singing videos. At the very least, they were much more polished. They joked about whether I had hired a new team. However, after the change in video style, the positive comments seemed to increase. It appeared they had some issues with my original editing style. Humans with no taste. The account for my little yard went viral without any warning. I don't know if it was because my hand appeared in the shot one day or because the scenery in the yard was just that beautiful at the time. They saw the piano I had moved into the yard in the video. At that time, I was trying out a newly composed piece, playing a section, stopping, thinking about the melody. Julian was filming the yard, and he edited the video later. I thought it was good, so I posted it. Someone offered a high price for a potted plant I was growing. An expert pointed out that they were all valuable and difficult to cultivate varieties. I didn't want to sell them at first, but their offers were too high. So I sold a few and borrowed a bank card from Julian. I didn't want to use my own card right now. He had helped a lot, so I considered it his salary. Julian toyed with the bank card in his hand, his eyes curving into a smile. "Is this you planning to keep me, Vincent?" I told him the truth. "Can't afford it." He chuckled. "You can. I'm very cheap." I didn't take the bait. They said they liked seeing my hands in the shots, so Julian helped film some. I treated my two accounts differently. For the singing account, I basically posted the work and then ignored it. For the yard account, I was happy to reply to a few comments. They liked the little yard I was tending to. They had good taste. Spending time with Julian was quite nice. He occasionally had to go on business trips, probably back to his company to handle things. The rest of the time, he stayed at my place. I didn't know how long he planned to stay. The village road was repaired, a concrete road now. Money really does make the world go round. Once the money was in place, the project was completed quickly. With easier access, the outside economy could now come in. I'd seen the village chief looking cheerful lately. I wondered what good news he had. Julian was away for a few days. I asked him to bring me back a bubble tea from the city on his way back. I hadn't had one in a long time and kind of missed it. But just in these few days, I heard from the villagers that a crew had come to film promotional material. This project was happening in several nearby villages. I didn't pay it any mind. Until one day around noon, coming back from the market, I saw a crowd gathered in front of my house. They seemed to want to go in, but the village officials looked troubled. "This gentleman is here recuperating. He doesn't like to see strangers." In a way, I was the village's benefactor, having donated a lot of money. It was only right that I was well liked. There were a lot of people there. I didn't look closely at first, but as I got nearer, I began to make out the faces, and my steps faltered. several familiar faces. Through the crowd, I saw a propped-up camera, saw the surprised looks on everyone's faces, and saw several of my former colleagues. In the crowd, I saw Iris. His expression was complicated, a mix of shock and something else. There was also Ken, along with two other A-list celebrities. My past reputation was, to put it mildly, notorious. They had probably heard of me. Their appearance here was likely for filming a variety show. Connecting that with what the village had said about promotional filming, I understood. It really felt like a time warp. Looking back, the one thing I hadn't realized that day was that they weren't just filming a show, it was a live broadcast. So, the moment I appeared on camera, hundreds of thousands of viewers in the live stream saw me too. I walked past the crowd with a calm expression. The village chief still looked troubled. "Vincent, this is the crew filming a show in our village. They think your yard is beautiful and want to take a look inside. Do you?" "Chief," I said, my tone flat, "I don't consent." With that, I took out my key to open the gate. Iris suddenly spoke up. "Vincent, long time no see." Hearing his words, everyone present seemed to wake from a dream. "Vincent, where have you been all this time? Everyone was so worried about you. Why did you just leave without a word? Do you want to say hello to everyone watching the live stream? They all miss you." Iris had been playing this part for so long, he thought he could still use these little tricks to put me on the spot. I turned to look and my eyes met the camera. "You're live?" At that moment, everyone there fell silent. I hadn't faced a situation like this in a long time, but it was fine. I could guess what the audience was thinking. They probably thought I had some new backer and was using this show as a platform to clean up my image for a comeback. I really couldn't be bothered to deal with this. I said, "Sorry, I don't know any of you very well, so I won't be inviting you in." Then, I opened the gate, closed it, shutting them all out, and went into my house. I didn't care who they were. Just as I expected, after a year, the entertainment industry had forgotten me. But overnight, it all came rushing back. Iris's show was a charity-themed variety program, and with a few big names on it, it had a huge following. My appearance reminded them of who Vincent Brooke was and everything he had supposedly done. The internet has no memory, but that statement comes with a condition. Unfortunately for them, they could curse me all they wanted, but they couldn't find a single account that belonged to me. In the evening, I saw the production crew snooping around my yard again. I frowned. They must have seen the traffic they could generate and wanted to use my precarious reputation for another boost. They asked the village officials to contact me, saying they wanted to do an interview. I refused. No company, no contracts. This life was intoxicating. I recently got a kitten, a little orange tabby. I named him Tangerine. He often darts around the yard but is well behaved enough to know not to touch my flowers and to stay away from plants that are bad for him. Having a cat added a small expense. I was in the yard looking for Tangerine to feed him. "Vincent," I heard Iris's voice. Through my gate, I saw my so-called brother. He's only a few days younger than me. We looked at each other through the latticed gate. His eyes held a sense of smugness and contempt that he himself didn't seem to notice. Him and me. Before we were 12, it was as if our lives were swapped. After 12, it was as if we were always being compared. As the biological son who knew the truth, I was pained by my parents' neglect and favoritism. I naturally hated Iris, but I knew the source of my pain wasn't just him. In this 1 year, I had made peace with the past 2 decades of my life. "Iris, what do you want?" I had no intention of letting him in. He said, "Why did you just delete all your social media accounts and disappear? There were still a lot of people who liked you. Didn't you think about them? The entertainment industry is a strange place. Even if most people were trashing me, there was still a small fraction who supported me. But there are too many people in the industry. I'm not important. They'll find someone else to like." I looked at Iris and asked, "Why are you asking me this?" Over the years, I had suffered a lot at Iris's hands. So for him to be standing here not mentioning our parents or the Brooke family, I knew something was off. He didn't notice the scheming look in his own eyes. He continued, "Vincent, I don't think you need to be so impulsive. There are still a lot of people who care about you." I cut him off. "What do you care about me to?" He froze for a second, then instinctively said, "Of course." I gave him a slight smile. Since you care so much, then tell me how mom and dad are doing. Are they healthy? Have you been taking good care of them, little brother? In the span of that one sentence, I saw shock flash across Iris's eyes. Seeing Iris turn around in a panic to tell someone to stop filming, I knew I was right. This trick of his used to work every time. In the past, I would never talk about the Brooke family, not even when there were no cameras around. I couldn't be bothered to talk to him about it, and since my parents forbade me from revealing Iris's identity and our relationship, I naturally kept quiet. But this past year has been so comfortable. I've realized that not having to worry about what others think is a truly happy way to live. Iris was panicking because he got cocky. He was still filming a variety show, and with his current popularity, he probably had his own dedicated cameraman. On a live show, of course, they'd be following him everywhere. Being inside the gate, I couldn't see the angle outside clearly, but someone must have been hiding behind him just now. Still live. He was so confident I wouldn't bring up the Brooke family, but I was done being the good son. A year without contact, and their perception of me was still stuck in the past. The only way to be happy is to not care about what happens to other people. I didn't even need to expose Iris's identity. What I just said would get out and people would start digging. They'd dig into the huge disparity in resources between me and Iris, dig into how many sons the Brooke family actually has, and dig up Iris's real identity. I didn't want to deal with him, but he brought this on himself. Looking at Iris outside the gate, I let out a soft laugh. Still filming? Huh? Pulling this stunt again? You're a grown man now, why are you still so childish, little brother? I made sure to use the word little brother to get under his skin. He shot me a glare, but in my eyes it held zero threat. Iris's troubles were about to catch up with him, and my troubles had found me. The next morning, I fell silent as I looked at the travel-worn Alex standing at my gate. My cat, Tangerine, was lying just inside the gate, playing with his tail, adorably dumb. He had no guard dog instincts at all, with a stranger standing right at the door. Vincent, he spoke first. Long time no see. I looked at him and replied, long time no see. Can I come in? He asked. My tone was calm. Sorry, you're not welcome here. The exhaustion on Alex's face was real. I knew it wasn't easy to get here, but what did that have to do with me? He said, Vincent, I've called you so many times this past year. I've looked for you everywhere. Your aunt and uncle were so worried about you. I cut him off. So worried about me? Did you call the police? A person who has been missing for a year. Isn't that enough to file a police report? Alex was at a loss for words. Of course, I knew the reason. My parents were afraid that if they reported me missing, my identity would be exposed. A juicy scandal about a wealthy family is far more interesting to the public than some celebrity gossip. Or maybe, in their minds, my year-long disappearance was just another one of my schemes. See, they found me now, didn't they? Alex opened his mouth and after a moment said, Vincent, come back with me. Alex, let's just forget it, I said. There's nothing between us anymore. Vincent, ending the engagement isn't something you can just do by saying it. Alex took a step forward. You know, I see Iris as a little brother. I've known him since we were kids. My relationship with you and with him are different. I bent down and picked up Tangerine, then looked back at Alex and sighed. Alex, I live in a village. I'm not disconnected from the internet. Do you have any idea how popular the ship of you and Iris is online? Whether there was anything romantic between Alex and Iris or not, he had allowed Iris to cross a line. Even I, someone who didn't care, knew how much buzz there was online about the union of the two wealthy young masters, Alex and Iris. Alex, what are you doing here? Another voice chimed in. I saw Iris walking over. Their show was still filming, so of course he was still around. I really couldn't stand seeing these people. What a hellish morning. At least I didn't see anyone following Iris today. Vincent, are you really going to make mom and dad come get you themselves before you're willing to go back? I reached out to scratch the little cat in my arms, then looked up. My gaze suddenly froze, looking past them to the other side. They heard the sound of a car at the same time and turned to see a Porsche parked not far away. Then, another travel-worn figure got out of the car. When I saw Julian, I thought he was a breath of fresh air. He was the most pleasant person I had seen in days. So handsome. He walked straight over. Even though I was standing right in front of the gate, Julian very naturally took out his own key and opened it himself. There was a hint of showing off in his fluid movements. I only gave him that key because he sometimes arrived when I was still asleep or in my study and not looking at my phone. After opening the gate, before the people outside could react, he closed it again, pulled me into a hug. He smelled of shower gel he'd showered before coming, and shut them out. He said, "It's too early, the bubble tea shop isn't open. I'll have someone bring you one this afternoon." "Vincent, who is he?" Alex asked after a moment of silence. "Our engagement isn't officially over. And you're living with another man?" I said, "I'm sure I told you we were breaking off the engagement." His voice got louder. "But I didn't agree. When did I ever agree to break off the engagement with you?" Hearing this, Iris's face next to him turned a little pale. Alex seemed a bit desperate. He said, "Vincent, come back with me. We can talk things out properly." He probably finally realized that I was no longer the person who would huddle with him for comfort in a strange house. He was an illegitimate son, and I was the legitimate son who was treated like one. When we first met, it was like we were clinging to each other for warmth. I did have some feelings for him once, but in these so-called wealthy family alliances, feelings aren't a priority, so we never really dated. I used to think he at least liked me a little. But later, I saw clearly that he had always been captivated by Iris's halo. Iris had been a dazzling young master since childhood. Alex was known in their circle as the illegitimate son, and my own identity was ambiguous. But he knew. He knew I was the Brooke family's biological son. He was just so conflicted about everyone. Just then, I saw someone emerge from around the corner carrying camera equipment. The cameraman looked a little guilty when he saw the scene. Iris clearly didn't expect this. "When did you get here? Did the live stream start?" The cameraman nodded. Apparently, Iris had snuck over, and the crew didn't know. They had started the live stream to find him, hoping to catch some drama. It looked like they found it. Julian stood in front of me. I couldn't be bothered to play along anymore. I grabbed Julian, held my cat, and went back inside. This was a private residence, they couldn't just barge in. But this show was really disrupting my life. I had to ask the village chief to warn them to stay away from this area. Julian came back a little earlier than expected. I asked him about it. He said, "I saw some news online, so I hurried back to check on you." I was silent for a moment, then asked, "You know who I am, don't you?" "Yeah." He didn't seem surprised. I guess that makes sense. As long as you're online, it's not surprising that you'd know about me. Julian saw me often and even moonlighted as my videographer and editor. It wasn't strange that he knew my name and what I used to do. I didn't know what to say, so I just asked him, "And you're still simping for me?" He laughed. "So you know I'm a simp?" He was very rich, I knew that. He could have any man or woman he wanted. This was probably just a novelty for him, maybe he'd never met anyone like me before. Feelings are such a strange thing. You say they're not there, but it seems like they are. You say they are, but something feels missing. Julian reached out and patted my head. "It's okay. We have plenty of time." One of my internet aliases was blown. My Yard account actually had a decent following now. A recording of the show's live broadcast was shared, and people noticed the striking similarity between the yard I lived in and the videos posted on the account. Someone even dug up old close-ups of my hands. A massive crowd flooded my account, asking if the person behind it was really Vincent Brooke. I didn't reply, and I stopped updating. There was no point. My address had been exposed, and people were already saying they were going to come check in to reveal who was really behind the account. Julian asked if I wanted to move. He said he had a house with a yard that I could mess around with as much as I wanted. It had security, so no one would bother me, and we could ask someone from the village to take care of this yard. I asked him, "How much is the rent?" He laughed. "Are you really talking money with a simp?" I fell silent, then after a moment said, "So, does this mean you're keeping me?" He said, "Let's just say you're doing me a favor." Julian really had a way with words. As I was getting ready to move, I ran into a skulking Ken at my gate. He stopped hiding when he saw me. I heard their filming had already wrapped up, so what was he still doing here? I wasn't going to engage with him, but the kid awkwardly called out to me, "Vincent, what is it?" The gate to the yard had been open for the past 2 days while Julian had people over to help move. Ken looked at me with a complicated expression. "I have something I want to ask you." My patience was thin. He was so strange. He used to look at me with such disdain, and now he seemed like a completely different person, almost humble. "Do you know a singer named Anonymous?" "No." I started to walk away, but Ken got anxious and grabbed my arm. "He's huge online. How could you not know? I had him write a song for me before. The IP address for that account is from around here. I asked the villagers, and you're the only one who's always playing with music. You haven't met any other singers? You took this variety show just to find him?" He was frank. "Not exactly. It was just a good opportunity to come and see." I remembered the messages on my phone. Ken had been jumping up and down asking if we could meet in person. I rarely used that messenger app. Now my only contacts were a few clients and Julian. That was it. I remember not replying to his message. I forgot. He wasn't an important person, and it wasn't an important matter. I told him, "I don't know any singer like that. You're asking the wrong person." Awkwardly, right after I said that, the movers came out carrying my piano. For some reason, Ken's gaze was glued to my piano. The workers set the piano down to the side. As if possessed by an impulsive urge, Ken suddenly reached out and pressed a few keys while I wasn't looking. The sound of the piano echoed. Ken's eyes widened, and his gaze shifted from my piano to my face. He seemed to have suddenly confirmed something, yet he was very unwilling to believe it. In the end, all that was left was a complex look. He was crazy. Then I watched as he pulled his phone out of his pocket, tapped on it right in front of me, and a moment later, my phone started vibrating. I don't like setting ringtones, but the vibration was still noticeable. The screen showed an incoming call from Ken. I remained silent. Ken obviously saw it too. His entire worldview seemed to be collapsing. I calmly directed the workers to move my things. Later, Ken looked like he was about to cry. I don't know how a grown man could be so dramatic. He stood at my gate with red eyes. Anyone who didn't know better would think I did something to him. He demanded, "How can you be anonymous? Weren't you an actor before?" I said, "What's it to you? Not caring about other people's problems is really liberating." I continued with my move in an orderly fashion. Ken looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't. Moving into Julian's house with my cat was huge. Tangerine was so excited he looked like he owned the world. The backyard looked like more than I could handle on my own. There was a butler and gardeners. Julian said I could just direct them to help me decorate the backyard. Probably knowing I liked my solitude, they mostly didn't bother me. After the yard account went silent, the fans finally caught on. Information was being dug up all over the internet, and they had managed to dig their blogger into oblivion. Many of them didn't even care who Vincent Brooke was. Some started to speak up for me, saying how could someone who spent a year and so much effort on a small yard be like the person portrayed in the rumors? People started to realize that my so-called scandals were never actually proven with solid evidence. Now, it looked more like a planned, preemptive attack to keep me from getting popular. The internet world is like that. There will always be people who jump on the bandwagon, and there will always be a second opinion. Plus, with Iris's identity now being exposed, his fans, who had been my harshest critics, were now being targeted. The Brooke and Herbert families were both trying to suppress the trending topics. Firstly, there was Iris's identity. Secondly, there was the relationship between Alex, me, and Iris, which had also affected the Herbert family. Because of the direction of public opinion, if I really was a member of the Brooke family, how could my past treatment be explained? If I was really Iris's older brother, and Alex was my fiance, then what did that make him and Iris? Logically, the Brooke and Herbert families had the power to keep this under wraps, or at least delay the outcome. But the reality was, not long after I moved, articles about Iris's identity flooded the internet. The fact that he was the adopted son and I was the biological one was no longer a secret. Netizens were first surprised, then silent, and finally collectively told the wealthy family's nice one. The person who leaked the story was clearly on my side. A few hundred words described my tragic childhood. I thought the writing was good, but a bit exaggerated. All I can say is that the person behind this has some serious connections. Things I had never seen or even known about were all laid bare. For some reason, Julian still wasn't going to the office much. He was mostly working from home and talking to me. My gaze shifted from my phone to Julian, who was not far away. Was this you? He didn't see my screen, but he already knew what I was talking about. He didn't deny it. He said, "You just need to be yourself." My so-called past scandals seemed to be getting clarified one by one. The people who used to relentlessly curse me suddenly disappeared. Some spoke up for me, while others continued to wave the banner of capital, claiming my current image rehabilitation was a corporate maneuver and that I was about to make a comeback. Of course, Julian's capital was quite substantial. The climax of the public opinion storm probably began when Ken, from his main account, shut down a gossip blogger on my behalf. His fans and other netizens were stunned, asking if it was really him or if his account had been hacked, because in everyone's mind, he hated me. I don't know what got into Ken, but he was going crazy on his main account, claiming to be my fan. There was indeed a trending hashtag called Vincent Brooks Comeback. I glanced at it and didn't think much of it. My parents finally tracked me down. They somehow got my current phone number and called me. I thought about it and decided to answer. The moment I picked up, my mom's voice came through. "Vincent, is that you?" I hummed in affirmation. My mom's voice was tinged with tears. "Vincent, why haven't you contacted us for so long? Mom misses you so much." "Mom, if you can't find me, you can call the police." "The police can find me." Probably taken aback by my sharp reply, my mom fell silent for a moment. I asked her, "Is there something you need?" After a long pause, her voice came again, tentatively. "Vincent, the news online right now. Did you release it?" "No." Just then, Iris's voice came from the other side. How could it not be him? If he hadn't said those things on the live stream, how would anyone have known? I laughed. "Iris, weren't you the one who came looking for trouble? Who would have thought you'd be stupid enough to bring people to a live broadcast? Do you think no one can see through your little tricks? You idiot." The netizens were right. Only by letting the ugly words out can your heart become clean. My mom sounded very hurt. "Vincent, what good does it do you if the Brooke family falls? You know what Iris means to the Brooke family." I didn't know what to say, so I just told her, "But it doesn't do me any harm either. There's no point in talking when you're not on the same page." They wanted to meet, but I refused, hung up, and blocked their number. Here at Julian's, I rediscovered the joy of tending to a little yard, but his place was already so beautiful that anything I did was just icing on the cake. My interest wasn't high, so I went back to immersing myself in singing. Lately, the inspiration for my songs seemed different than before, until I saw a comment. "Mr. Anonymous songs are so sweet lately. Is he in love? What kind of crazy talk is that?" I ignored the comment, but Julian read my comment section more carefully than I did. He looked at these comments, a smile in his eyes. "Ken is seriously nuts. He came to me to write a song again. He asked if we could meet in person this time. That's a definite no. He can write songs himself, but he insists on singing mine. He's got some serious issues, but he paid well, so I took the job. He requested a love song, so I wrote one. But then he asked if we could do a duet. I thought about this for a long time. In the end, Ken's money convinced me. Julian also said that if there's money to be made, I should make it. When I showed up at Ken's recording studio, his staff all stared with wide eyes. Only Ken was composed this time, inviting me in. When I started recording in the booth, Ken's staff were once again in a daze, as if they needed to check if their ears were working properly. It was like they were hearing my voice for the first time. After the recording, Ken asked me, "Vincent, why did you become an actor back then? If you had been a singer, you might have..." I couldn't answer why. All I could say was that every step had been a twist of fate. He handed me a business card. "If you consider a comeback, please consider my studio first. I promise to give you better terms than any other company." I didn't reject it outright, but I had no intention of responding after taking the card. When Ken's new song was released, it successfully trended. because he was the first person to have a duet with Anonymous. His fans felt like he had won the lottery. Thanks to him, several other clients sent duet invitations. I turned them all down. The internet makes you lose your anonymity. I was photographed when I went to Ken's studio, and the last layer of my anonymous persona was stripped away. But by this point, that account already had tens of millions of followers. No matter how large the internet population is, it's impossible that none of my former haters were among them. When my identity was completely exposed, they all fell silent. Just like with the Yard account, they didn't seem to dare to speak up. I want to say something, but I'm afraid he'll just ghost us again without a word. I apologize for my past arrogance. I'm sorry, Mr. Anonymous.
I'm sorry, Vincent.
Who remembers that interview when Vincent first debuted where he said his dream was to be a singer? For real, I'm crying. I remember that too. I think his company thought he had the looks for acting. Trash company burying talent. No wonder Ken became a fan. That kid knew before we did. It's over. Whoever exposed his identity, is he going to ghost us again? Does anyone get me? I'm both a hater of Vincent Brooke and a fan of his 2 alternate accounts. My allegiances are complex. I'll punish myself with a drink. No wonder he never replies to comments. Putting myself in his shoes, my heart breaks for him, sob. I'll be brave and ask, when is Vincent making a comeback? Actually, the main reason the Yard account stopped updating was because I moved. I'm at Julian's place now and haven't accumulated enough material to post. After my aliases were all exposed, my clients also seemed to be silent for a long time. Then they all started asking if I wanted to sign with them. Ken seemed to realize the competition was fierce. Whenever he had the chance, he would emphasize that whatever terms other companies offered, his studios would be better. I have no intention of making a comeback. Life is good as it is now. The Brooke family stocks are falling. Iris's reputation is also plummeting. It's really living up to the so-called master's prophecy. The Herbert family quickly distanced themselves. I don't know what Alex was thinking, but he denied having any relationship with Iris beyond friendship. I saw my parents again at the hospital. My mom was sick, so I went to see her. When I arrived, I found her crying while holding my old medical records. She said, "I'm so sorry, Vincent. Mom didn't know you were sick. The records had always been in my old room. I had forgotten where I even put them." I said, "It's okay." She asked me, "You're not willing to forgive Mom?" I was silent. This wasn't about forgiveness or not. She said the Brooke family was in a tough spot now, with competitors kicking them while they were down. If they couldn't get through this, the family might go bankrupt. I said, "It's okay. Iris brings prosperity to the Brooke family." In fact, Iris had also been targeted by negative press from his rivals lately. But it wasn't exactly slander. Most of what they published was true. When a person is down, people will kick them. It's perfectly normal. My dad came later. Unlike my mom's soft approach, he directly accused me of being unfilial, pontificating about how I had ruined Iris and the Brooke family. Whatever. I just let it go in one ear and out the other. Shortly after visiting my mom in the hospital, something noteworthy happened. The master my parents had deeply believed in was arrested. The charges were fraud and economic crimes. Along with him, several other well-known business leaders were also arrested, including the friend who had introduced the master to my parents. Even more dramatically, Iris, the child my parents had adopted from an orphanage, turned out to be that friend's illegitimate son. So, the whole thing about my birth chart cursing my parents and Iris's bringing prosperity was just a scheme orchestrated against them. But among all the cases, my parents were the most devout believers. Even after learning the truth, they still couldn't believe it. They were lost, struggling between regret and disbelief, blaming each other. And I learned to be myself. It was like being reborn. The past shadows have faded. I've let go, but I don't forgive. I watched as the Brooke family declined, watched as Iris got what he deserved. I found someone who loves me. Julian is truly a patient hunter. He waited until I willingly walked into his trap, to fall with him. Later, I posted a new piece. It was a video of me singing and playing the piano, filmed from behind. But at the end of the video, you could hear my voice and Julian's. He suddenly asked me a question. Is there anything you want to say to the people who liked you before? I thought about it for a moment and replied, I guess I should say I'm sorry. Liking me always made them feel inferior. For some reason, they later called this the most heartbreaking fan moment of the year. I didn't make a comeback, but I kept releasing new work. At first, they begged me to return to appear on the big screen. Many companies extended olive branches, but I didn't agree. Later, they shifted their fire and condemned the major entertainment companies for being useless, for not being able to tempt me. Alex's POV. When I first met Vincent, he was a complete misfit in the Brooke family. He was insecure and lacked a sense of safety. I was an illegitimate son, and I didn't fit in with the Herbert family either. We clung to each other for warmth. Iris was different. He shone so brightly. I scrambled to climb higher, only to find he was always out of reach. It wasn't until the Herbert family recognized my abilities that I seemed to finally catch his eye. I did like Vincent, but back then, I was blinded by the halo I saw around Iris when we were young. So I deserved this. The Vincent who left me now shines brightly, a star I can no longer reach. Turns out he was always brilliant. We were the ones who covered him in dust. Ken's POV. My emotional journey with Vincent probably went something like this. First impression. So this is the kid who got ahead with connections? And with his face? Later, he quit the industry? Without a word? So effortlessly cool. Even later. Mr. Anonymous? Notice me. Mr. Anonymous wrote a song for me. Mr. Anonymous is working with other people too, wah. Mr. Anonymous is such an amazing guy. Much later. Damn it, Vincent Brooke? Finally. I'm sorry, Mr. Brooke. I was too loud before. Julian's POV. That day, I saw Vincent playing the piano among the flowers, his fingertips dancing. He wore a white shirt, his bangs falling softly on his forehead. Amidst the music and the scent of flowers, he was like a little prince from a fairy tale, like a red rose planted in my heart. I wanted to take him home and cherish him,